Hello, my name's Katie, and I'm back reading Wintering on this chilly fall day in the Pacific Northwest, and we are on a chapter called Slumber. I may love the great outdoors in winter, but even I draw the line at sunset. When November comes, I have no desire to leave the house after dark. My instinct is to hibernate the evenings away. I hate those strange walks through the high street, lit only by street lamps and the glow of shop windows, the cold seeping up your coat sleeves. I don't like the way that 4 o'clock can feel so desolate, the air damp without the corrective force of the sun. My yoga class gets skipped, and I'm reluctant to head into the night for something as insignificant as a social drink. The very thought of driving seems nightmarish. Those impenetrable roads, their edges uncertain, the dance you have to perform with the full beam, flicking it on and off. Far better to stay at home. I don't mind staying in. I realize that for plenty of people it feels like a brutal restriction of their freedom, but it suits me down to the ground. Winter is a quiet house in lamplight, a spin in the garden to see bright stars on a clear night, the roar of the wood-burning stove and the accompanying smell of charred wood. It is warming the teapot and making cups of bitter cocoa. It is stews magicked from bones with dumplings floating like clouds. It is reading quietly and passing away the afternoon twilight watching movies. It is thick socks and the bundle of a cardigan. In summer, I average 6 or 7 hours sleep a night, but in winter it's close to 9. As soon as the sun goes down, I start thinking about going to bed. Early nights are a habit inherited from my mother's side. None of us are night owls, but neither are we particularly larks. We all need to sleep. I have traveled through distinct phases in my attitude to this. As a child, I found it highly congenial that my grandparents tucked themselves up at the same time as me. As a young adult, I thought it was hilariously tame. As I got older, I found my own urge to sleep more and more inconvenient, and dreamed of unlocking the extra time that, say, a 5-hour night would bring. Becoming a parent cured me of that. Some people thrive on a little sleep deprivation, but I do not. I now know that I can achieve far more after 9 hours than I can in the spare time afforded by a short night. Sleeping is my sanity, my luxury, my addiction. I'm fairly certain that my decision not to have a second child rests squarely on my worship of sleep. And winter sleeps are the best. I like my duvet thick and my bedroom cold so that I have a chill to snuggle against. Unlike those terrible thrashing summer nights when the room is always too close to allow that final descent into oblivion. The cool winter nights afford me deep sleep and long magical dreams. When I wake in the night, the dark seems more profound and velvety than usual, almost infinite. Winter is a season that invites me to rest well and feel restored, when I am allowed to retreat and be quietly separate. But in recent weeks, my happy hibernation has been disrupted. I've come to call it the terrible threes, the dark insomniac hours when my mind declares itself fully fired in the middle of the night. It always happens at 3 a.m., a long way past late, but too early to surrender and start the day. There in the truest night, I lie in the dark and catastrophize. Tonight I wake from a dream in which I have been loaded into a giant wicker man, ready for burning. It's a lurid fantasy, so gothic in its sense of persecution that I find myself laughing at it in the silence. What a silly little human I am to dream such obvious things and then wake up with my heart pounding and my throat tight. Still, it stops me from falling back to sleep. This cliche has produced a very real physical effect. I am alert to its threat. I shift against my pillow, vigilant. I turn onto my side, plump on my pillow, and take a swig of water from the bottle I keep beside me. The night inches on. I could make a career out of worrying if only anyone would pay me. What do I worry about during these long nights? Money, death, failure. The familiar horsemen of those quiet apocalypses that happen only when the sun's gone down. In the middle of the night, I can worry my house onto the edge of a cliff, forever about to topple onto the rocks below. I am only ever a missed wage packet away from total annihilation. I carry too much debt. I owe nothing. I owe too much. I own nothing. I own too much. One day the bedroom ceiling will crash in from the weight of all the junk I have in the loft above. The central heating makes an odd noise at this time of night, and I could swear the pump is on its last legs. I should wake H and make him listen to it to see if he agrees. It could be spewing carbon monoxide into the bedroom as we lie here, oblivious. Whole families die like that, quietly, in the night. After H's appendicitis, I find it hard to shake the feeling that I could lose him one day. How sudden it could all be. And what would I do then? I have nothing to show for my 40-odd years on this earth except for a pile of dusty books. Yet here I am, edging even closer to the abyss, throwing away the secure underpinnings of my life by leaving my secure job. In daylight, I can make an account of the stress that made the decision to leave a sensible one, the slow encroachment that ate into my family life. But that's in the daytime, when I value such things as calm and freedom. In the dark, I am struck by a dyspeptic bout of conservatism. I should have a savings account containing a year's salary. I should have proper life insurance. I have squandered something somehow. I am not sure what or when, but I despise myself for it. The precariousness of my life bites me hard. I can feel its teeth in my gut. I am nothing. I am no one. I have failed. The ego flares like a struck match, bright blue, fleeting. I am thankful to be alone when this happens, to let it burn out in private. We should sometimes be grateful for the solitude of night, of a winter. They save us from displaying our worst selves to the waking world. I turn again, adjust the covers, gulp more water. 2 whiskeys, drunk late and in desolation, announce their presence in my temples. I should have known better, but I always go and make it worse. I will not sleep now. It's a fool's errand to try. I can feel my heart beating beneath the duvet, my breath failing to fill my lungs. I sit on the edge of the bed and with cold feet find my slippers. I rub my eyes, grope for my glasses. I pad downstairs to find my notebook. Hazel Ryan opens a wooden box and hunts through the wood shavings and straw. Yes, she says, here it is. She plunges in her hand and pulls out a ball of yellow fur about the size of a walnut. A hibernating dormouse. It is round and compact, with its tiny pink feet tucked into its belly, its ears pressed back, and its black-tipped tail folded up over its head as if to tie the whole arrangement in place. Hazel places the dormouse in the palm of my hand, and it rolls like a marble. It is lighter than air and surprisingly cold, but also soft and slightly squishy. You couldn't mistake it for dead. It is in the deepest of sleeps, drowning until the summer. Only 3 native mammals hibernate in the UK: bats, hedgehogs, and dormice. It's funny. Dormice? It's spelled D-O-R-M-I-C-E. I always imagine dormice being spelled like door mouse. But I guess it's not. Or there's another animal that's called dormice, and I just have never heard of it. Other species, like frogs and badgers, go into a state of torpor, T-O-R-P-O-R, torpor on cold days, dropping their body temperatures and slowing their breathing and heart rate to conserve energy for short periods of time. But true hibernation, when this cooling and slowing happens for extended periods of time and is not responsive to the outside temperatures or the immediate availability of food, is relatively rare. Dormice don't work to a strict timetable. Their hibernation is dependent on the weather. They spend the early autumn building up reserves of the liquid brown fat that make them squishy to the touch. As Hazel shows me, you can leave fingerprints on a hibernating dormouse. So fluid is the layer of fat underneath its skin. This is an easily accessible energy store to get them through the long months to come. So from September, they gorge on hedgerow fruits like blackberries, hazelnuts, and chestnuts in an attempt to double their body weight from around half an ounce to a rotund ounce and a half. They have to do this quickly at the rate of around a gram a day. In times of abundance, they can become obese. In times of scarcity, they will try to delay hibernation until they're plump enough to survive. But when the first frost arrives, they need to be ready. Dormice have a high surface area to volume ratio, which means that they can lose heat very quickly. In the last few days before hibernation, they build their nest, a tight ball of moss, bark, and leaves. In the summer, they live in trees, but the temperature fluctuation up high is too great, so their hibernation nests are built in dips in the ground, perhaps around the roots of a tree. It says of a trees. I think they mean of a tree. They aim to create an environment that collects rain and dew so that the nest stays damp through winter. This sounds far from cozy to the human mind. Why would you want a damp nest? Do they drink it? This sounds far from cozy to the human mind, but for dormice, it's an essential element of their survival. They are so small that without external moisture, they would desiccate during their long sleep. They would just dry out. That's so sad. The right location found, they bundle themselves tightly into their nest and seal up the opening. If you can't find a door, says Hazel, there's a dormouse in it. They tend to hibernate individually but a recent radio tracking study found some evidence of nest sharing. This may happen when there is less choice of habitat. Dormice will seek out the perfect climate, and if there aren't many sites available, this may force them to share. In captivity, sharing becomes more common. Safely in their hibernation nests, the dormice will lower their body temperature to that of their surroundings, which is usually 5 degrees Celsius or less. To hibernate efficiently, they should be just above freezing. If they warm to 6 degrees Celsius, their metabolic rate increases and they start to burn fat. Below zero, they also need to call on their fat reserves to avoid freezing. If they manage to hit the right temperature, they will hibernate from October to May, slowing down their metabolic rate, breathing very slowly, and matching the temperature of the outside world until the first days of summer, when there are enough insects to feed on again. Even after they wake, they will fall into periods of torpor when food is scarce, for example, when it's raining or during the hungry gap between their preferred crops. Dormice spend more time in hibernation than they spend awake. Wow. I had always imagined hibernation as one long, monotonous sleep, but Hazel tells me that in fact dormice wake up around every 10 days, staying in their nests but bringing their metabolism up to speed again for a short period of time. It is thought that this allows their kidneys to flush out toxins and also provides an important opportunity to check that their nest is still safe. Hazel is the senior conservation officer at the Wildwood Trust in Kent, and the dormice that she looks after can be underweight as they head into winter. Quite often they are from orphan litters or ones that were mistimed with the seasons. Others have been accidentally dug up in their nests. Because they are at greater risk of not surviving their hibernation, they are unraveled from their cozy beds at regular intervals to be weighed, and that is what I'm witnessing now. I would love to claim I'm helping, but I think I'm actually just getting in the way and cooing a lot. It's hard to think of anything more objectively cute than a dormouse. Tiny, soft, and sleepy, they seem almost primed to invite human adoration. They are also extremely vulnerable. The population of hazel dormice has been declining for some time, and they're now considered to be in danger of extinction. The world has turned, and dormice have been left behind. Seasons are shifting, hedgerows and woodland habitats are being lost, and their food sources are disappearing. They may be too fragile to survive in the industrialized world, but for now they remain an icon of indolence. Downstairs at 4 a.m., I set to work. It felt like an act of mania to get up in the middle of the night, but with a hot cup of tea in my hand, I see it as more like an urge toward sanity. Now that I'm upright, my thoughts settle like flakes in a snow globe. Everything falls back into perspective. I clear the surface of my desk and make a pool of light with my lamp. I go off to fetch matches and light a candle. One light is steady and sure, the other uncertain and flickering. I open my notebook and work between these two poles. On balance, it's where I prefer to be, somewhere in the middle. Certainty is a dead space in which there's no more room to grow. Wavering is painful. I'm glad to be traveling between the two. Once I abandon the fight to return to sleep and claim my wakefulness, I can find a slanting love for this part of the night and the almost morning. As the only one awake, I luxuriate in a space in which I can drink in the silence. It's an undemanding moment in the 24-hour cycle. Nobody can reasonably expect you to be checking texts or emails, and the scrolling feeds of social media have fallen quiet. In a world where it's hard to feel alone, this finally represents solitude. Even the cats know it's too early to demand to be fed. They raise an ear as I pass, and then retreat back into their curled balls. This is a time in which very few activities seem right. Mostly I read at this hour, perusing the pile of books that live by my favorite chair, waiting to offer up fragments of learning rather than inviting cover-to-cover pursuits. I browse a chapter here, a segment there, or hunt through an index for a matter that's on my mind. I love such loose exploratory reading. For me, I am not reading to escape. Instead, having already made my getaway, I am able to roam through the extra space I found, as restless and impatient as I like, reveling in the play of my own absorption. They say that we should dance like no one is watching. I think this applies to reading too. The inky hours are also for writing. The scratch and flow of pen on good paper, the stuttering chains of words that expand to fill pages and pages. Sometimes writing is a race against your own mind, as your hand labors to keep up with the tide of your thoughts. And I feel that most acutely at night, when there are no competing demands on my attention. That slightly sleepy, dazed state erodes the barriers of my waking brain. My dreams are still present, like an extra dimension to my perception, but crucially, my sensible daytime self, bossy and overbearing, still slumbers. Without its overseeing eye, I can see different futures, and make imaginative leaps. I can confess all my sins to a piece of paper with no one to censor it. If my night waking feels elemental to me, perhaps that's because it was once a normal component of human sleep, only recently forgotten. And at day's close, night and times past, it's the title of a book, I think, the historian A. Roger Eckerk asserts that before the Industrial Revolution, it was normal to divide the night into two periods of sleep. The first sleep, or dead sleep, lasting from the evening until the early hours of the morning, and the second, or morning sleep, which took the slumberer safely to daybreak. In between, there was an hour or more of wakefulness known as the watch, in which families rose to urinate, smoke tobacco, and even visit close neighbors. Many others made love, prayed, and reflected on their dreams, a significant source of solace and self-awareness. That sounds kind of lovely. I don't like waking up in the middle of the night and being awake for extended periods, but I love the idea of creating a ritual out of it. In the intimacy of the darkness, families and lovers could hold deep, rich, wandering conversations that had no place in the busy daytime. This was a function of the times in which the night really was dark, when the poor would go to sleep early to save the price of candles, and even the rich would have the choice of struggling on with their occupations in limited light or surrendering to sleep. Outside the house, the streets were usually unlit, so the only navigable space was home. This was so ordinary, and perhaps also so private a moment in the day, that little was written about it. Eckerk picks up a range of passing references to the first and second sleep in diaries, letters, and literature, but this ancient practice is nearly invisible to the contemporary eye. A 1996 study by Thomas Ware and his colleagues attempted to replicate the conditions of winter sleep in prehistoric times, depriving subjects of artificial light for 14 hours each night and observing what happened to their sleep patterns. After several weeks, the participants fell into a pattern of lying awake in bed for 2 hours before falling asleep for around 4 hours. They would then wake up in every 2 or 3 hours of time characterized as contemplative and restful. They would then wake up and enjoy 2 or 3 hours of time characterized as contemplative and restful, and then take another 4 hours of sleep until morning. Most interesting of all, Ware observed that the midnight watch was far from an anxious time for his subjects. They felt calm and reflective in these moments, and blood tests revealed elevated levels of prolactin, the hormone that stimulates the production of breast milk in nursing mothers. That's what I thought. It's funny. In most men and women, prolactin levels tend to be low, but the watch seemed to have an endocrinology all of its own. which were compared to an altered state of consciousness similar to meditation. In this borderland between wake and sleep, our ancestors may have experienced a state of being different from any we know, or any we can know unless we refuse the intrusion of artificial light. Maybe my sleeplessness isn't caused only by anxiety about the future. In the 21st century, we are awash in light, not just from the chandeliers and lamps that deliberately light up our homes in the evening, but also from the ever-glowing legions of electric devices that flicker and pulse and glow to tell us that we're doing something. Lights nowadays can feel like an intruder, carrying with it a unit of information or an obligation. Even left alone on the sideboard, my phone is a restless creature, periodically fidgeting into life to announce a new message or an update or a reminder of something I was trying to forget. I've spent years looking for an alarm clock that lets me check the time without casting light into the room, but I've now given up. The digital LED clock kept me awake with its green glow. The traditional clock with luminant hands proved impossible to read. The night glow clock that lit up only when I pressed a button felt like it burned my eyeballs in the middle of the night, leaving eerie blue phantoms behind my eyelids when I tried to return to sleep. Add to that my television. Yes, I am one of those sinners who loves to drift to sleep in the company of a comedy show, with its piercing red standby light that seems impossible to disable, and the neighbors at the back who find it necessary to floodlight their garden each evening. Light is inescapable. In my town, the local council is gradually replacing the old orange-toned sodium lamps with newer, brighter LED ones. The dark and our fears that lurk in it is pushed ever further back by residents, but residents are complaining that they can't sleep, that the light floods in its way past blackout blinds and double-lined curtains. There is not enough night left for us. We have lost our true instincts for darkness, its invitation to spend some time in the proximity of our dreams. Our personal winters are so often accompanied by insomnia. Perhaps we're drawn toward their unique space of intimacy and contemplation, darkness and silence, without really knowing what we're seeking. Perhaps, after all, we are being urged toward our own comfort. Sleep is not a dead space, but a doorway to a different kind of consciousness, one that is reflective and restorative, full of tangential thought and unexpected insights. In winter, we are invited into a particular mode of sleep, not a regimented 8 hours, but a slow ambulatory process in which waking thoughts merge with dreams, and space is made in the blackest hours to repair the fragmented narratives of our days. Yet we are pushing away this innate skill we have for digesting the difficult parts of life. My own midnight terrors vanish when I turn insomnia into a watch, a claimed secret space in which I have nothing to do but contemplate. Here I am offered a place in between, like finding a hidden door, the stuff of dreams. Even dormice know how to do it. They wake a while and tend to business before surrendering back to sleep. Over and again, we find that winter offers us liminal spaces to inhabit, yet still we refuse them. The work of the cold season is to learn to welcome them. Okay, that is the end of November as a section, and we're moving into December. We're ahead of the calendar year, at least while I'm reading this. Maybe you're syncing it up with the days, which would be kind of fun. That's all I have to say today. I hope you have a good evening/day, and I hope you enjoyed reading Wintering with me, and I will see you again next time I read.